Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff Mom Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And today we're very excited to be joined by the host of the podcast, Truth Hounds, Anna and Kyle. Hi, Anna and Kyle. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us.
Hi, thank you.
We've already been on a bit of an adventure in this virtual podcast space, I've got to say.
I know. I feel like we recorded a whole episode right before this episode.
We really did, yeah.
Yeah. We were stuck in some stairs.
Yeah, I have a bad habit of starting a jump because I'm like so excited and like, oh, peoples. And then you guys are so fun. And yes, put us on some like stone stairs where only our head appeared. That was delightful.
It was some kind of together mode mishap, malfunction. I don't know, but we were like ghostly figures in some stairs for several minutes.
We took you outside and had a little conversation, so...
You did, which we appreciate because we were discussing how we're jealous that the two of you get to record at a beach. And apparently not just as a one-time thing, but a multiple-time thing.
Yeah, as an 8 to 9 time thing, yeah.
I like those specifics.
I was saying before that we were told by our producers that we didn't have to go to the beach and that there was a simple way to recreate that. But we refused and said we actually would like to go to the beach.
Yeah,
every time.
We were kind of very polite and we were totally understanding of where they're coming from. And then we said, and thank you so much for your perspective. And then we would really rather not.
I feel like the beach is a necessity to the chemistry.
Right. I agree.
Again, I'm really jealous of that.
When we're on the beach and we go, oh, it's so beautiful. We just wanted to make sure that was coming from a genuine place. And we were actually looking out at the beach when we were saying that.
Yeah, I feel like we are great actors, and yet some of the best acting just comes from, being truthful. So that's the secret to good acting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's very wise.
Annie, are you taking notes? Yeah. Annie is an actress, so I feel like she's taking all these notes. Be real.
Yeah, you just go to the beach, and then you talk about the beach, and then, Oscar. So.
Oh, yeah. Find your truth.
And then
it's simple,
Oscar
yet
jump.
complicated.
I love this.
My whole history is going to be written based on this advice. I'm very, very happy that it's coming my way, this award. So we really, let's introduce the two of you to our audience, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourselves.
I'm Kyle, and this is Anna.
Perfect.
Cool.
Good beginning.
I don't know. I feel like I want to do it together.
We can do it. We are doing it together. Aww.
So we have a podcast called the Truth Hounds, which is available right now, our first season. And we are, what do you call it when you're sort of not professional? What's the opposite word?
I think amateur.
Novice?
Amateur.
Yeah.
So we're amateur investigators.
But with a lot of heart. So don't forget,
with a lot of
so much heart.
And a sense of humor, which is always important.
Which is, not even objective. It's just there. So that's factual. So leave that alone.
And our podcast is just basically about investigating. Actually, we used to say they were some of the smallest mysteries, but they're actually huge mysteries.
Yeah, we've really keyed in. We don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. It's not that they're insignificant mysteries, that they're actually so significant that you take them for granted, I think.
Yeah, they're kind of just like universal things that you might think about, I wonder why that is, but you probably won't do anything about that. So we actually found ourselves with a lot of time on our hands, and we decided, hey, you know what? I think we can do this, and we're going to investigate these things.
Yeah, for example, like you go, well, I know gravity just works, end of story, but we go, but why? Why?
But why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah.
And again, to just really highlight, we have a lot of time on our hands. So we're sitting around luxuriating in time going, let's look into that. So
that sounds like the 3 a.m. question with your friend where you're like,
right.
But why is pizza so good?
Absolutely.
Yes,
when you're like one into the edible and everything comes to light, you're like, oh, but what? We've had those moments. But yeah, as I was listening to your podcast, some of your episodes, y'all are really fun because one of the big things that you do talk about is that you've already had this friendship and can kind of read with each other, like what's going on, how things are going, and kind of being able to plot together, even though you may not have talked about it, the next steps, and you're in sync. Can you kind of talk about how you guys met and how you became such great friends?
We're both from comedy, and so we met through comedy. So we both come from stand-up backgrounds. And so we actually probably the way that I feel like stand-up is like you just cross paths with people over many, many years. So we probably have known each other for like, I want to say almost a decade or something crazy like that. And yeah, we would just, I think even before Anna lived in Los Angeles, she was in San Francisco doing stand-up, and I would just see her on shows. And so like over time, you just sort of like, I think like you just know someone for so long and maybe you're just kind of acquaintances, but then like, you know, you become friends.
And Kyle, I think, I hope it's not too much to share here, but Kyle's from San Francisco. I'm so sorry to give it away.
Oh my God. Okay, please don't come to San Francisco. Look for me. No, I won't be there. Okay?
Don't look for her. And honestly, leave her alone. But
leave me alone.
Honestly, leave her alone. She's tired. But so she lived here in Los Angeles doing comedy. I lived in San Francisco doing comedy. And we actually both ran concurrently, like two very complementary shows in our respective cities. And so it was very funny. I think the first time proper that we met was like our two shows had a crossover event, a kind of ultimate collab. And they were both like, we both do, and this is, I'm rolling my own eyes as I say this, but we both do like not super traditional comedy, I think it's safe to say. And so our shows were both like, really the point of them was to get away from doing traditional stand-up. So the prompts of both the shows were like anything but stand-up. And so we had a kind of crossover event of the two shows. And I think, yeah, we met during that. And then we were often performing on the same shows or like had like complementary, I think, things we were doing on stage. And then we started performing together. I mean, I guess that was much later, but we started performing together, and I'll just go ahead and speak for me, okay? Me, Anna. Hi. But this is me, Anna. Okay, here. I've like never really been able to collaborate with another person because it feels, I don't know, there's just such a specific thing. I've definitely done things with other people, but it's never been like, it's just always been very laborious. And this has felt the most like natural, organic, I'm really using the word complimentary probably 10 times here. So I'll just go ahead and make it 11 very complimentary styles of comedy. And so it was like, I don't know, it felt very rare. The end. Okay. Ta-da.
And scene,
We
actually.
were trying to see if Kyle's going to come in and say she was also felt like it was complimentary.
As
well.
Silence
I'm wondering if Kyle's
going to. Don't find me.
No, I honestly sometimes with these kinds of questions, it's better for Anna just to take the floor because I think it's part of, I have like a bit of a learning disability. So sometimes I'll hear a question and then I'll just take it into a totally different direction. And then when I'm at the end of it, I'm like, okay, that was not the question. I don't know even where I am now. So better for Anna to do that because she'll say it succinctly.
No, but Kyle dares to dream. So we usually will break down questions by she dares to dream, and then I go, and then the method or whatever. And so that's why it works. Yeah.
It's the sign of a great, collaboration and partnership. And the both of you have been, as you said, in comedy and then some acting and now podcasting. How has this podcasting world been for you, and how has that like collaboration translated into this format?
Really? I'll take a stab at answering a question on my own.
And I'll just be right here.
Yeah, hold my hand.
I'm just holding your hand.
We need the together mode for this. Keep going.
Yeah, we need the together mode right now. I would say it's been pretty seamless because we've worked together on creating like shows, like live shows. So in a way, it's like we kind of had already had all this practice. And I think mainly for the Truth Hounds, it was just about like we had an idea of what we wanted it to be, but it was about figuring out how to actually like make a show of it. We were so lucky that these producers were just like believed in us and were like, we like what you're trying to do, but we really had no idea. I don't think there's anything that exists that's exactly like this. We definitely have our influences, but like we just sort of were like, this is our idea. So again, I'm probably nowhere near the question.
No, that's a beautiful Kyle.
It was good answer.
It's a beautiful
Thank you guys
answer.
for being so supportive.
We're here to hold you up, build you up.
Earlier, I was talking about the fact that we have these giant team meetings, in which I've probably goofed up a couple of times, but your producers, Anna Hosnier and Miles Gray, came on and talked about your show and about how excited they were. And for them to brag about how good your comedy is and your timing is huge, because they are hilarious people that intimidate the hell out of me. So every time I talk to them, I pretend like I don't know what's happening and just walk away because... right? Like just trying to hide away from them. Sorry, guys, just playing. But like, yeah, they had set you up and talking about how genuinely funny you are in just real life. And honestly, our 20-minute setup conversation, because we did, y'all, we set up for 20 minutes here, was because it was such a fun conversation. And you two do compliment each other so well and in such a beautiful way. It's not, I haven't heard anything discouraging. Y'all are so cute and uplifting each other. It's freaky. I'm just kidding. I love it.
Yeah, it's weird.
No, but I love that. And it also translates on to your podcast, because not only are you asking these really significant, but like seemingly daily common things, like about being late, which by the way, I felt called out and it was rude and I didn't like it.
What if you were called in?
Oh.
Wow. That's the nicer version, right? Called in. So, this is what the kids say, right? Called in is
Yeah, the kids are saying called in.
Nicely told, get your life together. Called out is like, why are you doing this? Go away, right? Is that the
Not go
explanatory?
away. We want to just check out what you're doing and see why you're doing it. And then we go, all right, that's what she's doing. You know? I mean,
It was fun.
and don't go away,
And so,
you know?
Did you actually, because I do want to ask about this episode, did you actually go stalk this person?
Yes.
Yes. I think
before I jump in, can y'all explain this episode? Because I'm obviously going to confuse everyone with that question.
Yeah. If you haven't heard, it's our first episode, and we wanted to sort of introduce what the show is going to be. So we tried to take a topic or a question that we felt was like the most
succinct, maybe, like the most official, like could be science if you're not paying attention, you know, which is kind of what happened. But
yeah, a lot of people wrote in and they were like, I listened to this show because I wanted to get like a scientific
my God.
reason of why this is. And we're like, we're actually not those
Someone
people.
wrote in and they were like, I thought that they would touch on the phenomenon of the person who, I mean, I'm sorry that I'm doing a voice, but it's just like, I thought they would bring up the phenomenon of the whatever that has a name. Like I was looking for answers and it seemed like they already knew the answer. And so they could just definitely go start their own podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the same people that will go on to a review and be like, actually.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
they knew in some ways, different ways more than us. So
More than us. Yeah. Well, so basically we decided to investigate why there are some people who are always late, because I think everyone has someone in their life who, I mean, I'm not that person, because I think as we say on the show repeatedly, Anna and I are never late.
It's true.
We actually show up on time. Although today, I will say there were some malfunctioning issues, so that doesn't really count.
I think actually maybe it's okay to even say that throughout the season something happened.
She's got an actually. Yes. Actually, Anna has weirdly, since that episode, become later and later.
Sometimes it's just a minute, but sometimes it's about 5. So, you know.
So at some point, we're going to have to go back
Revisit.
and do like a "Where Are They Now" episode.
You really
and
do.
Be like, "Where's Anna now? She's actually 10 to 15 minutes late."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where are they now? They're actually not here because they're running late. So.
Yeah, she's running late. But we decided to investigate lateness. And so it's sort of, the episode takes us in sort of like all kinds of different directions. We set up a focus group because it was COVID. We couldn't actually meet with people. We basically found a bunch of strangers who identified themselves as late people, and we just sat in a Zoom room with them, which was really fun. And then we did a sort of like ride along with a person who was late on his way to meet a friend, because that's usually when a late person will be late, is on the way to see their friend. Yeah, and I think that's like the fun thing about our investigations. We sort of start with the idea, and then we just like, it kind of takes us in sort of all kinds of different directions so we can sort of understand the idea.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's nice because the way our quote unquote scientific method or whatever is you could tell how scientific it is just like ranges from, oh, what would be a fun way, what would be our way of looking at this, and then on the other end of the spectrum, what would be fun for us to do. And so I think it actually just ends up happening that we are like, what's a thing that we'd like to do, and would that fit thematically? And so it becomes an excuse. I think the reason why it works so effortlessly is because it's just a continuation of us hanging out, honestly. But like the clocked in, going to work version, but it's like, I mean, I guess I'm gonna spill a little bit of beans. We haven't done this yet, but we were like, well, what would be really fun is if we had an excuse to go on a hot air balloon. So like
and podcasts from the hot air balloon.
Yeah, and podcasts from the hot air balloon. So that's like, we'll do anything for science, but also that's a thing we would like to do. So
right. I love that idea. Yeah, pay for me to do this because I want to do this, but we'll do it for the show.
Well, we'll do it for the show. Exactly.
We don't do that at all, do we, Anney?
You got to do just one on a hot air balloon. I mean, just one.
Yeah.
Of course.
I'm okay without the hot air balloon.
Problem is, we're not as like, you guys are very professional in how you record and how you sound. So for us, if we actually do the hot air balloon, it's probably going to be like, it's probably gonna be the worst sound ever. Because we just do it and then we like figure it out later.
Oh yeah, I think it'd be hyperventilating from me as I'm about to pass out, and you're holding the mic as I fall to the ground in a fetal position. So that could be fun.
That could be fun, yeah.
But yeah, so in your episodes, you actually do interact and talk to these people. Which, by the way, your description of how you see these people. Hilarious. I loved it. You're like, the shirt thanks him for wearing it, like essentially was a fantastic quote. Well, have these people who are on there, have they listened to it and have they commented about your commentary at all?
I've really tried to get an opinion out of the participants, and I've been like, you're on this week's show, and you're actually a really big part of it, and I even can't wait to hear what you think. And the responses have been, no real. I'm going to say no real insight. So
yeah, they're being really cool about it. They're like, no, yeah, that's cool.
Very
cool,
cool about it.
In the late episode, we have one of my favorite descriptions about Mia, and this is the late person's friend who they're going to meet. And I think the description is like, she was gorgeous. She's like the type of girl that, would plan your
ultimate bridesmaid or ultimate
brides. Yeah, she's the ultimate bridesmaid. She's the one who sets up everything, organizes everything. But check out the dance floor. She's also on the dance floor breaking it down.
Yeah, she's doing the place card. She's like doing the place cards, but damn, she's also got moves. She's
so cool and partying,
effortless. Yeah.
I think we ran into her, and so I think we did say like, what did you think of like? You like your description of how we described you? I think she really liked it. But again, she didn't have much to say about it. But I take it as she really liked it.
Yeah, I can't help but think she loved it. And so we'll just go ahead and say she loved it.
Yeah,
I would love that description. I feel like that makes me also nervous, being like when people actually meet me or that people who actually know me be like, that's a damn lie. Why were they lying about you?
Oh, mistrustful. Okay, interesting. Well, I love I selfishly also love like serial. Any investigative podcast, I'm there. I'm listening. I don't even care what it's about. And specifically, what I love is their cadence. A lot of times, it's just so. To me, it's so funny, but it's also when it's supposed to be funny, it's like painfully not. And then, just whatever. It's like just a very, very fascinating way of speaking. And the way Sarah Koenig specifically described like everyone she encountered is always like, I guess I'm thinking of like the main character of the first season, Adnan, but she was like, and it's really not about this, but he's doe-eyed. He's gorgeous. I mean, you look at him, you're reminded of a beautiful calf who is also a model. And you're like, why?
Oh my God. I hope someone describes me as a beautiful calf and a model one day.
So it's a calf, so it's cute and it's not threatening, but it's also a model. So you definitely are like, wow, they're gorgeous.
I want to put you in my magazine.
I want to put you in my magazine and also my stable at the same time.
In my stable. That's so stupid.
Oh, it's a calf, Kyle.
It's a calf. That's what you're doing. That's where they go, right?
I was going to ask if you were into these kind of investigative podcasts and true crime and your experience when it comes to like entering that world as women, both as the investigators, being the investigated, perhaps, because like a lot of areas in podcasting, when you think of true crime, not many women involved. And I was thinking about how a lot of times with true crime, which I haven't listened to a lot of, so I could be totally off. But my perception as somebody from the outside is a lot of times it's about women getting killed and like men talking about that, which I could be totally off. But I was just interested in your experience and thoughts around that.
Well, I think, Kyle, maybe it's fair to say you famously tell them how many podcasts you listen to.
God, you guys are going to really hate me, but I listen to 0 podcasts.
0 pod. She's batting 0. 0.
However, I really enjoy you guys. So
yeah, thank you.
Okay, let me ask you this question. How many of our podcast episodes have you listened to, Kyle? Just playing with you.
There you go.
I don't like being called out like this.
Being called out.
Called in? Wait, is this a call
She's being called in.
This is a call in.
She's being called in.
Okay, but here's the thing. I do watch true crime. I'm more of a visual. I will say again, it's hard for me to listen to something. I don't think I can honestly compute all of it. So
You're not the only one.
So I need to watch. So I watch true crime, any kind of true crime doc.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
TV.
Dockhead. Yeah, of course.
I'm on Letterboxd.
I'm with you.
She's on Letterboxd.
Until I started podcasting, I did not listen to one, and I have a lot of friends in podcasting, and I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely am supporting your podcast.
Subscribe.
I bought the mug.
No, I think that's the cooler position to be in, because I will say I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I'm listening to every podcast. You have a podcast, I'm listening. I don't know why. Am I afraid of being alone with my thoughts? Maybe. I don't know. It's like I have it on. I have even a little system like when I take a shower in the morning, I listen that's when I listen to the news. So I could get my day started that way. And then whatever the weekly I'm subscribed to a bunch of stuff. And I really like to listen. I mean, this is really ill. This is probably illness and it's actually not good. But I'm walking around outside or if I go for a run or something, I'm listening to true crime. I don't know why. I really don't know why. And I do think that I've heard that true crime is consumed by women. And I wonder if it's I don't know that I can make this scientific claim, but I wonder, I'm assuming my hunch is maybe it's the thing we fear because it's the thing that's ever present. And so we are almost in some way, sorry to use the word tantalized, but here we go. Tantalized by or you're listening to it in that way, almost, you're interested in the thing that scares you, you know? I mean, I don't know. I don't actively like feel a fear when I listen to it. If anything, I think we're like binging these things. And so if anything, we're distancing ourselves from it and are like overwhelming ourselves with it. But I will say that I listen, there's even a show I hate that I listen to every week. I'm there, I'm listening. I hate the host. It's a man. I hate him. He's definitely, you know, a lot of crimes are like the victims are women, and the way this specific person talks about it is like callous and gross and weird. And I don't know why. I don't know why I keep listening to it. And he even calls out, there are two very famous female podcasters, obviously, who have a true crime investigative show, and he constantly like rags on them, and I don't know why. And I like them so much, and I hate him, and I'm still listening. I don't know. What is that? That's sick.
Hey,
there you go.
That's hate listening, I think, which is some of our listeners who like to tell us how much they hate us, but they still listen. I don't know why. Just kidding. But yeah, no, I think we did a whole episode about women who are obsessed with serial killers in general. And it's kind of a large number. You're right. And again, the people who consume the most like true crime podcasts, specifically in documentaries, are typically women as well. And there's this whole level of like whether it's like a maternal thing, whether it's that mystery of it all and trying to unfold and seeing if you could see the underlying things that are there. That is for me. I'm like, can I figure it out? Which is stupid because if you look at Wikipedia, there it is. I figured it out. But there's still this random fascination that it's like, what happened here? What went wrong? But you do this whole other level when it's like you're a part of that. So you were so removed from true crime. Like, I'm not going to murder this person in this way and hack up their body. Nah. But you guys are like, why is that person rearranging their plants? I need to know what they are doing. Why is that person so mean? Like, you are doing the things, I swear, it's God's work for real. When you are calling out the everyday things that, again, you said that we take for granted that it's happening, but then when you sit there and just actually watch and you're like, why is this happening? At what point were you guys like, we must do a podcast about this?
You know what? I have to say that part of the allure of doing this was, I would say now that we're doing the podcast, there's really no danger in it.
There's zero danger.
But I was intrigued by, you know, stakeouts, you know, watching someone. I like the idea of like being someone who's like, we're following someone.
The truth is Kyle wants to wear a really big hat. So that's the truth.
I want to wear a disguise. I want to wear a beard, a huge hat. And then I want to be able to rip it off and go, yeah, it was me all the whole time.
And they're like, who are you?
So you want to be in your own Scooby special,
know who you
essentially.
are.
Big time. Yeah, we love the fanfare around investigating. I don't really love a dead body, I gotta say, but you know, the stakeout, the trench coat, I mean the magnifying glass, yes, of course.
I think we wanted to do it in a way that felt like what we could manage. Okay, maybe we can't solve a murder case, but we could maybe solve why that one neighbor is kind of weird, or like there's space for us, and I feel like we just created that space.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too, Kyle. Like, I think that there is space for all sorts of mysteries. It's not that, you know, it doesn't have to be gruesome. You know, I mean, the sad thing too is that because there's there's so much oversaturation of true crime stuff that it's almost like that's not even gruesome enough, you know? Like, it has it has to be worse. It has to be like, it has to be totally vile in order for it to even be interesting. That a simple murder is like not even, I'm sorry, it's like whatever, you know, it's like it's boring now. And so it's like, well, also there are mysteries that are important to me. Like, yeah, why did my neighbor rearrange her succulents 5 times a day? And sometimes it would even be 6. What is that? You know, I got to look into that. It's just like, why is tomato juice good when you're on an airplane? I don't know. you know, and I want to know, why is it good
It
on
really
an
is
airplane? It's
good.
so good. You're refreshed. I mean, you're looking fly as hell the second it hits your
sure.
mouth. Okay, but
I love that.
you bring me tomato
with a
juice
little
on
lime.
Earth with a little lime. I mean, you're on vacation. Your vacation has already started. You haven't even landed yet. You bring me warm tomato juice on the ground. I mean, what have I done to wrong you and
Ew.
your family? Why are you insulting me? You know?
Yes. Well, that's kind of my point. I was coming back to the guy who wrote like essentially the well, actually, I thought there was going to be science and all of this. And that's something Samantha and I have experienced on this show where this is anecdotal. There is research to back it up, but we get critiqued way more as women, especially when we're talking about something that's viewed as like a male domain or something scientific, where we even did an experiment once where we did a side-by-side, same content. One was done by a woman, one was done by a man. Man got like almost zero critiques. Woman, just nobody trusted her. Nobody believed her. She didn't know what she was talking about, no credibility. So I think that having this podcast where you're just like resolutely, no, that's not what we are. I'm very happy that you're doing that. I'm very, very happy that you're just like, no, that's not our thing.
Yeah, totally. That's so
Yeah.
interesting. That's so interesting. Obviously, I was going to say that there was also also this is anecdotal as well, but someone published under a male pseudonym, and then her submission got in. She was trying to enter her pieces into, I forget where, like New Yorker or whatever, and then rejected under female name, but then under male name immediately got published. And again, anecdotal, but totally, of course. I feel like to even take risks as it's so different to be able to take risks as a female identifying person. Like so much grace is offered to male identifying people, I
was going to add that it's like, I think also the combination of it being an investigative podcast, but also we're comedians. I think like trying to make a joke as a woman is like it's just like some guys that's there trying to like, what do you call it in basketball, is just trying to block your ass, like I literally feel like it's just it feels like, I think immediately when our podcast came out and we were like, clearly we're just trying to make some jokes. I think that there are people who wanted to shut us down because it's just like, even us just trying to be funny, I think is like, there's going to be people who are going to be like, oh, no, you don't. You can't do that, or you're not, you know what I mean? You're not allowed to do that.
Right.
But I think we're used to it. And I think it's just cool because then they're just people who really get it. And it's like, that's who we make it for. You know what I mean?
Totally, 100%. Right. Yeah, I mean, the nice thing is that, we totally have a nice back catalog of at least like basically a decade of like facing that kind of thing in comedy anyway. So that's good for them. We already know, we know the ropes, so it's fine.
We're used to this, so get on, step aside.
Step aside, my man.
Right. And we've had several comedians on here, and we've talked about that because obviously, the joke is that women aren't funny, and that's a really good point, Kyle. Of like, you're not only in the investigative space but also in the comedy space, which is a double. Have you seen that kind of attitude shift at all in your years working in comedy?
I think so. I think there's been a really cool, exciting shift. Personally speaking, this is like when I started comedy in San Francisco, and feels very weird because San Francisco sounds so like experimental and so much cool, weird comedy came out of there. Personally speaking, doing, again, quote unquote, alternative comedy, it felt like you're not allowed to be like weird and a female performer. You're just not. Like, it felt even more insular. The weird space, the alternative comedy space, felt like it was just guys. And it was like, there's like more history to this than what I'm about to say. But I think like Tim and Eric undoubtedly created a whole wave of weird comedy. And so the people who are coming out now are like students of whatever that is, not to negate the efforts of everybody weird pre-Tim and Eric, but like that's how I've felt. And I feel like now in the last 5 years, at least, weird comedy. The term alternative is now like irrelevant because it's actually what's popular. And if you look at any like vodka commercial, they basically, the language is the cadence of Tim and Eric, you know? So it's no longer alternative. But so like, I think women are more allowed in the space and it's like what's more popular now. But still, I feel like taking a risk is often like rewarded when men and male identifying people do it, and not so much when women. Like, I just feel like people are harsher critics of women, and so what is considered taking a risk is like seen as just wrong and maybe not like ambitious and cool and whatever, you know, and celebratory. Yeah, I don't know. That's been my experience.
Yeah, I think that we still do. I think that we still do experience stuff, and maybe it's a little bit more subtle because more of the popular culture of comedy right now is more accepting and like more, you know, about women doing comedy. I think there's a lot of backlash after like all of that, like women aren't funny, you know? And so it feels like we're in a very like positive time. But I think Anna and I experience things on a very more like individual level. Like it could be as subtle as someone, you know, making a weird comment to you after a show and you're like, well, you would never say that to a guy. You would never say that comment. You know what I mean? It's like this subtle thing where I think if you identify as a woman and you like know what that is, but even to tell someone that, they would necessarily be like, super overt, like they wouldn't necessarily like know what that is. But I think like, yeah, I think we still experience stuff on a certain level and as individuals.
Like they feel safe offering you advice even. Like it doesn't even necessarily be like criticism. It could just be like they feel like, oh, you know what? Here, actually, you could, I think what you could use is my opinion. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's the missing link. Yeah.
I think what it is that a lot of times also, you know, like sometimes it's this thing where like I feel like men put out work or something and we accept it as work, you know? But for us, it's like we put something out and then it's like, you know, like we have to like figure out how to make it valid and make it like worth it. And so there's a lot of that going on. And I even feel it with our podcast, a lot of like, you know, we're trying to like validate this thing where I know in someone else's hands, they would have put it out and it's like, they wouldn't have to do that. But, you know, the cool thing about working with Anna is that we're very confident in what we do. And we feel like what we do is like, hopefully undeniable. I mean, I don't think you can say hopefully undeniable. Then it's not, but I hope. But our goal is just to be consistent and like keep making it and just like blocking out everything because I think ultimately, you know, we're making something that we love.
Yeah.
So
I think it's like a success in that it's an exact execution, I've been saying, of the thing we've wanted to make. So it's like we are making it exactly the way we wanted to make it. That's undeniable. Like it is a reflection of, you know, the cool thing about it being a podcast is that we're allowed to be as ambitious as we want. And so we are like, yeah, we want to, I don't know, skydive or whatever, you know, like we want to skydive onto a cornfield. And it's just an idea that I came up with, Kyle, that I haven't run by you yet, but I was gonna. But like,
I love
why
it.
a cornfield?
Because why not? Okay. But I just mean like we are allowed to do we were allowed to go as big as we want and we don't have to like wait for people's permission, really. Like we definitely have producers' advice and opinions, and luckily they're very supportive of us and they rock. And I think that it's very specific, and I think it's like for a specific maybe group of people, but then I think it's like not really that questionable, you know?
Yeah. I would
The
love
truth
that.
we were talking about earlier.
Right.
The truth. You got to make this gesture when you do it. Listeners, you can't see it, but you know what it is.
You know what it is.
Truth. So this could be like me way projecting. But
I love that.
Yes. Do you think when you're investigating these mysteries that you are seemingly insignificant, do you find that it enlightens you to a bigger, like more, you can extrapolate it to other things in life? Or like, oh, I don't know, like at the end, all of a sudden you're talking about the depth of humanity or something. Do you know what I mean? Like you're like, you start this
That's where
small
we
thing,
go.
but it means so much more.
I think a couple of the questions, the answers have been very loose. I'll say that. And that is no disrespect to us as investigators, but that is just the answers have been loose. And so I think sometimes they also feel like joke answers, but I've definitely had a few moments where I'm like, that actually, you know what? That is true. And I think in some of them on a bigger level, yeah, like I think when we were doing Why Are Some People Mean? The conclusion we reached ultimately, I guess, could be unsatisfying because it's like we didn't find like a synapse in the brain that whatever. Those are the biggest words I can think of at the moment. But
Sounds good.
yeah, sounds pretty good. But I think we were like, I don't think anybody's inherently bad. I think that people have a bad day, but they could have a series of bad days, and that series of bad days could ultimately be a lifetime. I think that's like, to me, that sounds almost pretty insightful. That sounds pretty good. I don't know. Like, I don't know if it hasn't led to like a concrete, I can comment on like the essence of man, but I think, I've read a good amount of Russian literature. I'm asking introspective questions. I think that's a pretty good answer to me.
Most of the questions that you guys are asking are typically the why of humanity. Again, but why is that 2-year-old question of like, just why? And it can never really be answered, especially like at the beginning of your episodes with the mean stuff, that people calling in and essentially complaining about someone doing something to them one time or a few times. And it's kind of that whole other level of like, yeah, but we don't know the background of what they were going through. It could just be they're awkward. And you do talk about that at one point, like this could be like they have an anxiety disorder and therefore they are not able to interact the way you want them to interact. Or you may be paranoid and thinking that they're being mean to you when in actuality they're just being whatever. Mm-hmm. And you took it as a personal attack. Like there's so many of those levels of like, these are big, huge questions, which again, a 2-year-old asks you and you just sit there and going, because? And like that's all you got.
I guess because, yeah.
And that's that parent answer that no one actually ever has. And then when you grow up, you're like, that's not an answer. So tell me why. But yeah, that goes all up into the universal of, are we breaking some boundaries and bringing people together and just causing, this is what you're hoping you're doing. Not you, me, like when I'm asking those big questions. And in the end, you're just actually confusing yourself and those around you.
Which is the
Anney always
of life.
nods at me.
Yeah.
Right. Anney just nods at me typically and says, what?
That's not true.
Samantha, you are making me think like if I had a 2-year-old or something, maybe then I'd be like, that's when we're done with the show. One of us as a kid. Because then probably these are questions that the kids ask that we're like, no.
Just no. Well, like my response is like, why are people mean? Because they suck. Like,
yeah.
That would be my only answer. And I say that as sometimes I'm the mean person. I've definitely had my bad days. You were talking about all of the stuff you've identifying as a woman and all of your shows and being essentially just having to deal with all the sexist interactions. And recently I saw on Twitter a lot of people talking about how female comedians were introduced, and oftentimes it included how they were dressed, what they looked like, instead of actual like backgrounds of them, which is really infuriating. And you're talking about how things have changed. When it comes to your podcast, do you have kind of, obviously you do because you are people who identify as women, but kind of that feminist perspective of what these questions are and how you approach it or how it's answered?
I think that like, I'll try to start it off and then Kyle, you really can take it away.
Okay.
I think that like, we undoubtedly have had these experiences. We're also like very, I don't know, we both have like pretty funky, I think, understandings of our own femininity, we're definitely like, I don't know. I mean, I think to be a woman and to be like aware is to be a feminist in a lot of ways, like if you are putting yourself in positions where you're criticized only because you're a woman, you can't help but be aware, and so that shapes everything. It's like, it's a hard question to answer because it's like, there's nothing I don't see through the perspective of a woman. It informs, I think, literally everything. I don't know that I'm actively thinking about it all the time. I don't think I see everything as like, I don't know that I'm immediately aware of my perspective of it because of that, but it undoubtedly shapes everything, So yeah, I think like even being aware of like who's receiving and who's listening, and are they offering us the same grace as they would a man? Probably not. That shapes the way we make the show too, right? Like that's definitely an active part of it. I don't know that we are necessarily making something that we say this is feminist, but I think that the way we enter spaces, the way that we ask people, the questions we ask, our perspectives of them are inherently feminist and female. So to me, the two are intrinsically tied. That's my kind of non-funny answer.
No, I think that's great. And I think that sort of always my personally, my goal whenever I make something is to clown on some men.
Hell yeah, always.
I like it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of my approach to things.
Yeah, I think so too. I definitely
approve.
have never felt like I'm definitely not feminine or female and I refuse to participate, like it's never that at all. Like, how could it not be? It's also, I don't know, I feel like my experience of being, let's say, othered as a woman are like, then go on to make my perspective, I think, more interesting, right? I think the things that make you, this is very simple. Maybe I'm over making it over elementary, but like the things that make you different are the points of yourself that are probably the most interesting, right?
Yes.
Wow, should really shut him down. Okay.
Yeah.
Really, no one has anything to say.
No, I think that was perfect. I think it's hard to separate the two. I like how you said that. Like it's like that is like already that is our perspective because that is our part of our identity. So it's hard to separate them and also identify how they impact things because they're just like literally layered into things, I don't think we're even able sometimes to be fully conscious of how they're like participating in things because they're just us.
Yeah. And I think about like the things I would want to hear and the way I would want to be spoken to and the entertainment I want to consume. And unfortunately, for a long time, it didn't involve me as there was a lot of comedy that didn't, I think, have me as a desired member of its audience.
Member.
So I'm like making, I grew up in Russia, guilty as charged. And the comedies that I really liked were like Robin Williams and Chris Tucker because they were really physical and really goofy. And so that's what I wanted to do. I don't know that they necessarily were like, we want women as audience or whatever, but those are the things I want and the things that I embody that I now hope to make for others and hope to make them feel more included. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it really matters who is making stuff in that perspective and who's asking questions, because something we've been talking about a lot on this show lately is how science is biased in a lot of ways and has been biased in a lot of ways, but we just trust like, oh, it's science. So it's, fact. And one of my favorite examples is there was this study that was done by, I think, like 5 men. And it was about why women carry their cell phones. And they put in all this money and like all this stuff. And they finally asked a woman, she's like, well, we don't have pockets. And so like literally if they had a woman, she could have told them immediately.
Could have saved just so much money in the research.
Yes, and you can read the paper. It's great. Like all of the theories they have into it, you're like, wow. We are coming from different angles, friend, because I know that answer immediately.
Right.
So I love that. That's something that I have anxiety about on this show is when you make these kind of observations or generalizations, especially about, for us, when it comes to gender and using any kind of social science. It has been weaponized so often. And so it just makes me kind of anxious. But I what you said about like people they're complex. So like you can look into why are people always late? And there could be a general answer, but then there's also a complicated answer. So there's like avenue for connection, but also we're all different. So I think that just by making this and having a newer, different perspective in this arena, that you are unfortunately asking questions that to us might seem obvious, but to others might not seem so obvious.
Totally. Just the asking sometimes can feel radical, even though that's not how we intended it or something, you know?
Right. Yeah. So as we wrap up here, is there anything on the horizon that you're excited about? Any questions you're excited to ask and get answered?
I mean, I think I don't know if we can give it away, but.
We're wrapping up our first season, so there will be a second season. Hallelujah.
Woo.
And we're so excited because I feel like the second season, first season, we've kind of figured it out. So I feel like the second season, we're really going to go there.
We're really going to go there. Yeah.
We've been holding back, honestly, and we're just ready to fire at all cylinders. But our season finale is coming up in the next few weeks. Our podcast release every Tuesday, so one comes out today. But we'll be asking today's episode that's coming out. I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but the episode coming out is, why does it feel so good to give back? So this is actually one of our favorite episodes, and I don't want to give it away, but we decide to figure out why it is like giving feels so good, and we do this by doing something really special for one of our friends.
Aww.
But we have limited time in our day, so that impacts what we end up doing.
Yeah, that really limits, but also offers a kind of gift to the types of things
listener
we can do for our friend and for the listener. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's pretty exciting.
So hijinks ensue.
I know soon you'll be tired of people giving you suggestions, but I know Samantha has some suggestions.
Please.
Yes,
absolutely.
You don't have to, but one of the things is like, why are cat people and dog people so competitive with each other?
Yes. I see the sparks in Kyle's eyes immediately because I know where she is. I know exactly which side of the fence she's on.
I think I know where she is because we kind of talked about it previously, and I'm on her team. But, there's a big versus there.
There's a
big one. So I'm like, why? Let's talk about it. And then you should have people debate about it.
Absolutely.
Like, not me, because I'm not a good debater.
Debate, like a town hall debate.
Yes.
Okay.
Will you bring your animals?
Yeah, you have to bring
let the animals speak too.
Oh my God. That's chaos.
Let's do it. And give them a voice. You can do the TikTok version where they have an air bubble where you put in what they're saying.
For their podcasts, audio
This just got really complicated. We can do this. And the other one, because I just don't understand. I try so hard. Why do some people kill their houseplants? Why can't they keep a plant alive?
Wow. Yeah.
I need to know why I can't do this. I want to love them. So I Google about them.
Because Samantha, you are good at keeping your houseplants alive?
No, I killed them.
You are, okay, I see.
I'm the one who kills them. I need to know because I want to care.
So we're actually going to do a true crime season about you.
That's what I think. I think it should be specifically about her.
Oh no!
Why is Samantha?
We're gonna interview
and then everyone hates
elementary school teachers. Be like, well, as a child, I kind of saw.
She just really has rage against plants.
I think that would be great.
I love that. I think we absolutely could look into that. Yeah.
I'm excited to hear about it.
Yeah.
I like how it's become, we're trying to get answers. Will you please do the research for us now?
I need these answers.
Absolutely. I mean, we're actively taking pitches. So yes. This is
all right. Perfect.
Love all of those.
This is really a free gift to us. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us. Where can the good listeners find you?
You can find us on Instagram and Twitter. Our Instagram name is @Truth Hounds. And you can basically get all of the podcast updates there. And you can also listen to the podcast.
But on Twitter, by the way, we are at
by the way.
Truth Hounds, just by the way.
Don't forget it.
@the Truth Hounds. And you can listen to us. We're on all podcast platforms. So we're out there and we want to hear from you. And
we even have a tip line that you could call and leave a tip. So, Samantha, if you
so
have
that's what I need
another
to do.
question that you...
Yeah, if you want to leave those on the TIFF line.
Yeah, that'd be really
I'm
nice.
going to be the new
Just
super fan, and every phone call is just me asking questions.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would really love
They're
that.
going to become
she
like her
won't stop
Google.
calling. Yeah.
So far, our super fan
You
is
will.
a guy who knows science better than us. So we will definitely take you. Yeah.
Yeah, he wins because I definitely don't.
Oh, yes. Definitely go check them out, listeners. Samantha, I'm looking forward to this saga and learning more about you. And thanks again, Kyle and Anna, for being with us. It was such a delight.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
Thank you.
Yes.
You'll have to come back soon.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And if you would like to contact us, you can. Our email is stuffmediamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter @momstuffpodcast or on Instagram @stuffmomnevertoldyou. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina.
Thank you, Christina.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff Mom Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.